Hi, welcome to Budget MTG Decks. All magic fun, all cards under $1. I'm David, and this is my ally Ruud.
Hey everybody, today we're going to talk about all the red cards in the Battle for Zendikar set. This guide is designed to help you to evaluate all the cards for the limited format. So this means sealed and draft, so also your pre-release event. Yeah. To evaluate the cards, we put all the cards in 3 tiers. The first tier will be all the cards that are really great bombs that really drive you into a color just for that card. The second tier are all the cards that are pretty good and drive you into a color a little bit. The third tier are the cards that could be used as fillers if you are already in that color.
That's right.
So let's take a look at the commons.
Our first common card is Lava Step Raider. For 1 red we get a 1/2 Goblin Warrior with a special ability, pay 3 mana, and this guy gets +2/+0 till the end of turn. Ruud, what do we think about this guy?
Could be used, but it's not that great. The 1 power isn't that strong. It could get more power, of course, so that makes it a little better. It could be a 3/2, so it can trade with bears, which we really would like to be able to do. So, well, it's usable, so tier 3.
Yeah, I don't really like it that much because on turn 1 you're going to cast it, turn 2 you can only really attack for 1 point of damage, and only turn 3 can you attack for 3 damage. But you have to remember that you do need to use that 3 mana, which means you're not casting anything else, and there are 3 ones for 2 mana, which means that would be way more effective mana-wise. So I don't really like it that much, but it could be a filler, so tier 3.
Yeah, I think I wouldn't use it, but it's possible. Then we have the next card, Outnumber. For 1 mana it's an instant, and Outnumber deals damage to target creature equal to the number of creatures you control. Now we could have some creatures in red. It is removal, it's instant speed, so good enough. Tier 3.
Yeah, tier 3 removal. Let's say in a scenario you're probably going to have 2 creatures, so do 2 points of damage for 1 mana. It's not the end of the world, and anything up for that you're going to be doing, let's say 3 damage, which is not unreasonable, and then it's kind of like a lightning bolt. True, not too bad. Next card we have is Boiling Earth. For 2 mana we get a sorcery. Boiling Earth deals 1 damage to each creature your opponents control, plus Awaken 4 for 7 mana. I would just put this card aside. I don't think I would include it because you don't really want people who have they're good cards, they're not going to be 1 toughness, so all you're really going to be able to do is destroy some Zions, and that's if they're playing Eldrazi Zions. I don't really like it.
No, and also the Awaken cost is just way too much. 7 mana, yeah. It's just too much. I would also put it aside. Then we have the next card, Goblin Warpaint. For 2 mana, enchant a creature and it gets +2/+2 and haste. Well, I think I would also put this card aside. It's really easy for your opponent to 2-for-1 you with this card. Yeah. The haste mostly is difficult to use. If you want to pop down a strong creature and give it haste, it will cost you too much mana. You can't do it. It's just difficult to do. And +2/+2 just isn't enough for 2 mana, so I think I would put it aside.
Yeah, agreed. Next card we have is Kozilek Sentinel. For 2 mana we get a 1/4 with Devoid, so it's a colorless creature. And whenever you cast a colorless spell, Kozilek Sentinel gets +1/+0 till the end of turn. I would say this is a solid 3. Why? Because it does have power and it has a pretty big butt. So it does pretty good blocking in the beginning and towards the mid part of the game. Plus, if you will be casting colorless spells, and there's a lot of them in this set, you could be attacking with a 2/4 easily, and maybe even a 3/4 as the turns progress. So yeah, solid tier 3, good filler.
Yeah, it's in this set there's like somewhere about 250 spells in the set, and there are 70 of them are colorless. So there's a good chance you will have a lot of colorless spells. So yeah, it's good enough, tier 3. Then we have Makindi Slide Runner. For 2 mana it's a 2/1 trample creature, and as landfall, when a land enters the battlefield under your control, it gets +1/+1. So it will be a 3/2 trample. Not that great. It is usable, but well, 2/1. It could already trade with bears, so it's okay. Tier 3, only as a filler.
Yeah, exactly. Nothing more to add to that. Then we have Reckless Cohort. For 2 mana we get a 2/2 Human Warrior Ally. Ally might be relevant. And Reckless Cohort attacks each combat if able, unless you control another ally. Well, let's assume you don't control another ally, and then you have to attack with this guy. I think that's a pretty big downside, don't you think?
Yeah, very big.
I would put this card aside, considering that there's quite a lot of 2/2s for 2 which don't have that downside.
Agreed, really. Sure Strike is the next card. An instant for 2 mana, target creature gets +3/+0 and gains first strike. Now that's a nice combat trick.
Now we're talking.
Of course it's instant speed, that makes it a combat trick. And the first strike is really relevant, of course. +3, it could deal some damage, it could also kill a creature. It's pretty good removal actually.
Yeah.
Only if you have creatures, of course. So I would put it into tier 2, it's a really good card.
Yeah, it's conditional removal, but it just does amazing stuff. Really like it. Then we go to Nettle Drone for 3 mana. We get a 3/1 with Devoid, and we can tap this guy to deal 1 point of damage to each opponent. Plus, whenever we cast a colorless spell, we spoke already that is going to happen quite frequently, you get to untap Nettle Drone, basically either giving it Vigilance after you attacked, kind of pseudo-Vigilance, or being able to tap it again and doing another point of damage. So I would say tier 3, because for 3 mana, a 3/1, decent in the tank. When you can't attack, it's still dealing damage, good filler.
And of course difficult to attack into when you have it as a blocker with their higher casting cost creature.
Yeah.
Then we have Touch of the Void. For 3 mana it's a sorcery with the Void, so it's colorless. And it deals 3 damage to target creature or player. If a creature dealt damage away, it will be exiled. Tier 3. It's a little bit steep in the casting cost. For 3 mana, only 3 damage, but well, of course it's removal. It's also exiling a card, which is relevant with a lot of other abilities.
Yeah.
So definitely tier 3.
Yeah, I like it. It's too bad it's sorcery speed. Otherwise it would be a little bit higher, but you know, it's acceptable. Then we have Valakut Invoker. For 3 mana, we get a 2/3. And for 8 mana, Valakut Invoker, why can't I say Invoker? I don't know. Anyway, Valakut Invoker, there we go, deals 3 points of damage to target creature or player. This I would say is tier 3. Why? Because for 3 mana, 2/3 is a relevant body, that's fine. And should the game go long, towards the end of the game, you do have 8 mana. Being able to do 3 points of damage every turn just with this guy is actually pretty nice.
Yeah, if you are top decking, you draw a land, it can be used and it's removal in that sense.
Yeah.
Only late game, but it's usable. So
Exactly.
tier 3.
Yeah.
Then we have Valakut Predator. For 3 mana it's a 2/2 creature, an elemental, and it has landfall, it gets +2/+2 until end of turn when a land enters the battlefield. So it will be 4/4. It will most definitely be a 4/4 on turn 4 on the attack, which is of course quite offensive at that point in time. So tier 3.
Yeah, good filler. Don't expect it to do too much later on if you don't have enough lands. Then we have Belligerent Wormtail. For 4 mana, we get a 4/2 with landfall. And whenever land enters the battlefield under your control, Belligerent Wormtail gains first strike until the end of turn. I think kind of the same story. It's not super impressive, but it's a really good filler card at 4 mana. I think it really deserves the tier 3 spot.
Yeah, attacking will be difficult with it. I think mostly only if you have a land it will be pretty relevant to attack with it. Then it's pretty strong actually, 4 damage and well, very difficult to block. But if you don't get the land on the offense, it will trade with bear, so that's just a really big downside.
Yeah.
It will definitely be a tier 3. It can do great work. It's a little bit like a red card. It can be aggro, but if it doesn't work, it just sucks.
It's one of those high risk, high reward cards. You know, when it works really great, and if it doesn't, then you're just sitting there going, crap.
Yeah.
Then we have Ondu Champion for 4 mana. It's a 4/3 Minotaur Warrior ally. It also has the ally creature type, and it has Rally. Whenever this guy or another ally enters the battlefield under your control, creatures you control gain trample until the end of turn. This is one of those moments where I think to myself, this is tier 2. Why? Not because it's got Rally, not because it's an ally, but because it has a 4/3 body for 4 mana. And yeah, it's not going to die to a bear like the Belligerent Wormtail, but it is going to be able to push through for 4 points of damage, which is sick.
Yeah, it's pretty great. Also the ally and giving every creature trample, maybe or Eldrazi, it has some extra benefits, so good enough to be tier 2.
Yeah.
It could be put into tier 3 with me, but I think I will also put it into tier 2. Then we have Vestige of Emrakul. There's Emrakul. For 4 mana, a 3/4 trample creature with Devoid, so it's colorless. It's okay, it's an okay body, 3 damage, it's 3 power, it's good. So tier 3.
Yeah, after all, 4 butt, 4 toughness, yeah, it's pretty good actually.
Decent,
This is very relevant. The 4 toughness can do a lot of stuff, so it's definitely a good filler card. Then we go to a Volcanic Upheaval for 4 mana, instant speed, destroy target land. I have mixed feelings about this. I'm going to put it in tier 3 because it's definitely a powerful effect, especially with so many Awaken spells in the set.
Yeah.
However, I don't like destroying lands just from a let's have a fun time perspective. Nobody likes having lands be destroyed.
Yeah, that's just making the other people not be able to play. Yeah, it's strong, I think. Maybe a little extra strong in the set, like you just said. But it's just not really enjoyable.
No.
So, tier 3 from me.
Yeah, pop it in.
Then we have all the best common, I think, for red. Shadow Skull Recruit for 5 mana. It's a 4/4 Menace creature. Menace is very relevant. It can only be blocked by 2 or more creatures. Tier 1, because it will just do so much work.
Yeah, this will definitely, if I see if...
For red,
yeah,
especially red.
And for common, if you grab 2 of these guys, then it's definitely going to push me so hard into being the red player. Because it's just so relevant. It's 4/4 and you have to block with 2. Then we have Stone Fury for 5 mana. It's an instant, and Stone Fury deals damage to target creature equal to the number of lands you control. I would say tier 3 because it is pretty decent instant speed removal. You will be able to hit a lot of stuff with it. It is dependent on the amount of lands you have, but you're going to need 5 mana anyway to cast it, so most likely you'll be able to do 5 or more damage, which I think is pretty good. Yeah, not pretty good.
True, it's pretty good. Pretty good removal. So then we go on to the uncommons.
The first uncommon card is Akum Stonewaker for 2 mana. We get a 2/1 and also has landfall. When a land enters the battlefield under your control, you can pay 3 mana, you get to put down a 3/1 elemental token with haste and trample, and you have to exile it again, exile it at the end of your next end step. This card is tier 3. Why? Because you can't really attack with it safely because it has 1 toughness, so it's going to die to everything. The tokens you create are super powerful and very nice. They don't stick around, but they're very nice to attack with up until the point when somebody has a 4 toughness creature, and then it's game over. You can't use this card at all anymore. In a perfect situation, it does so much damage. However, what are the odds that that scenario is going to stick around? I say not as reliable. That's why it's not tier 2. I say tier 3.
Yeah, me too. I also say tier 3. It could do 5 damage, but it's also possible that it doesn't. If it really works out well for you, it could do 2 times 5 damage, but that's really an ideal world. I don't think it will do that a lot. So the next card, Processor Assault for 2 mana. It's a sorcery devoid. Of course, it's a processor. So you, as an additional cost, you get to put an opponent's card in exile into the player's graveyard. And if you can do that, you can deal 5 points of damage to target creature. So for 2 mana, 5 points of damage is of course very nice removal. You can do it to a player, that's a little bit of a downside. Also sorcery speed, but still, of course, removal tier 3.
Yeah, it's very, very conditional.
Very conditional.
Then we go to Rolling Thunder for X and 2 red. We get a sorcery that states that it deals X damage divided as you choose amongst any number of target creatures and or players. This seems like a card that's super versatile. It's removal. It can also hit your opponent for damage. And don't get me wrong, it is pretty decent, even though it's not instant speed. It is sorcery. But you have to remember that you're paying 3 mana just to do 1 point of damage to begin with. And then you're paying 4 mana just to do 2 points of damage. And sure, you can divide those 2 points, but at 4 mana, you can kill 2 Eldrazi tokens, which is not too impressive. Be wary, of course, that later on in the game, it does stack pretty nicely. So you can do it, but it's better later on in the game than early. I'm not too excited about it. Still tier 3.
Yeah, this card will only do good work later on in the game. When you have something like 6, 7, 8 mana, then it's going to do some serious work. But early on, like David said, if you have 3 or 4 mana, it's just not enough. Even if 5, it's 3 damage for 5 mana, it's just too much. So tier 3. It's usable, it's removal, but it's difficult.
Yeah.
Late game.
Yeah, very conditional.
Then we have Firemental Mage. For 3 mana, it's a 2/2. And it has Rally. Of course, it's an ally. Whenever another ally enters the battlefield or discard itself, other creatures you control gain Menace. Now, Menace is, of course, a very nice ability. Especially if you have more creatures than your opponent, they really can't block a lot of your creatures. Of course, in red there's a lot of removal, damage-based removal. Maybe they have an Eldrazi, but you can remove that, but then they still can't block anything with a big creature. They need 2 creatures. So Menace is really relevant. I would put into tier 2.
Yeah, very nice. I agree as well. This is the kind of card that you actually don't mind playing it early, because then you got a 2/2 for 3 mana, you can still use it, and the creature that was there before already has menace, you can attack with it once, and later on in the game, it's also fine because all your creatures get menace. You can swing it with everybody with impunity. Next card is Molten Nursery. For 3 mana, we get an enchantment, the Void enchantment, and whenever you cast a colorless spell, Molten Nursery deals 1 point of damage to target creature or player. I would put this card aside because by itself it doesn't do anything, and then you have to hope that you have enough colorless spells. I mean, you will be casting colorless spells.
Yeah.
But let's say if you cast 1 colorless spell per turn, that's still only giving you 1 point of damage. And as we said already, 1 point of damage is not going to cut in this set. There's a lot of big stuff.
If you have this late game, it will do nothing at all. If you have an early game, it might do some damage, but only once per turn. Usually you don't cast more than 1 colorless spell per turn. So 1 damage is just not enough. Even if you cast like 3 colorless spells in the coming 3 turns, it will only still be 3 times 1 point of damage.
No, leave it.
Yeah, it's not good. Aside. So the next card, Retreat to Valakut. For 3 mana, it's an enchantment with landfall. When a land enters, you get to choose. Target creature gets +2/+0 until end of turn, or target creature can't block. Well, pretty relevant abilities, especially in red. Can't block is also very nice, especially combined with menace stuff. Pretty nice. It's a tier 3. Of course, it won't do anything by itself. Only later on in the game when you get more lands. If you get it late game, it will still do nothing. So it's not that great, but it could do great work.
Yeah, I think it's a typical filler card. If you have it and you want to fill out that 3 mana spot, go ahead. And the fact that you can make a creature that they can't block with it, I think that's very handy. But for the rest, I wouldn't be too excited about it. Then we go to Tunneling Geopede. For 3 mana, we get a 3/2 with landfall. And whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, it deals 1 point of damage to each opponent. I would say tier 3, not because of its ability, but just for 3 mana, you get a 3/2 with potential upside when a land falls, when the landfall triggers on your side. But just being able to do that, plus the upside, I think is decent enough to fill out your curve.
I think so too. It's a relevant body. Then we have Vile Aggregate. Do I say that correctly?
Aggregate, yeah.
Aggregate, yeah. For 3 mana, it's a devoid card with 5 toughness and variable power. And that power is equal to the number of colorless creatures you control. So not even cards, creatures. Well, of course, when you have this card, you already have 1 creature, so it will already be 1/5 for 3 mana. Also has Trample, that's not really relevant. Also has Ingest, could come in really handy, exiling cards when you go for the strategy even a little bit. So tier 3, but it won't be very big, of course. You won't have a lot of colors.
No, but if you already can play this together with another color for Zions, because you can't get that in red, so you're playing another color for the Zions. If you can combine these 2 and you have a couple of these, remember this guy can get out of control. And the fact that he has Trample all of a sudden then does become relevant, because attacking with a 5/5 Trampler that you already have on turn 2 or on turn 3, sorry, is pretty crazy. Yeah, I think also tier 3.
And it will become even more powerful if you have, of course, more of the Scion cards, more of the Eldrazi. You even have some that will put down 3 Scions, then it will become pretty powerful, of course. Then we have Chasm Guide for 3 mana. For 4 mana, it's a 3/2 ally with Rally, of course. And if you put down an ally or this card itself, all other creatures gain haste. So it will get haste itself, which is pretty nice. You can attack with it right away on turn 4. Tier 3, relevant body.
Yeah, I'd say if it comes in late, it doesn't help you very much, because then you still need to cast another creature after this. What are the odds of that happening? The fact that it has haste itself, it's just not. Let's just look at, for 3 mana you get the Tunneling Geopede, it has exactly the same power and toughness. I don't think the extra mana is worth it to get an extra, to get the haste ability. Then we go to Crumble to Dust. For 4 mana we get a sorcery, it's colorless, and exile target non-basic land. Search its controller's graveyard, hand, and library for any number of cards with the same name as that land, and then exile those cards. Then the player shuffles his or her library. Okay, talk about situational. They first have to have not only a land, but a non-basic land? And what are the odds that they're going to have multiple non-basic lands? And why would you even want to remove them from their library and their graveyard because they're not using those lands anyway, that's not in their hand? I would say put this card aside.
I agree. Then the next card, Turn Against, for 5 mana. It's an instant with Devoid, so it's colorless. And you get to gain control of target creature until end of turn. Untap the creature and it gains haste. Now this looks like, why would you have a threaten effect for 5 mana? But the fact that it's instant speed is really relevant. Makes it a lot more powerful than most of the threaten effects. It is a little bit conditional, of course, to use it. You could use it as a normal threaten effect, but if you can use it in your opponent's combat phase when he actually attacks with, well, let's say an ideal scenario, 2 7/7 Eldrazi or something like that, you get to pick one of those Eldrazi, you put it on your side, block his Eldrazi, he loses 2 very big creatures. Of course it's very conditional, but it can do that. It can do this kind of stuff. Even if he has a really big Eldrazi which you can't stop, you can just take it from him and it doesn't attack that turn.
Yeah.
It has a lot of uses, so I would put it into tier 2.
Absolutely, this is definitely tier 2. If I see a couple of these kind of cards, then they're tier 2, so it pushes me into red because this effect is a total blowout. It can make you, from losing the game, it can swing it all around and have you be winning the game just with one card. Absolutely awesome. Those are the uncommons. Let's have a look at the rares. Our first rare is Radiant Flames. For 3 mana we get a sorcery with Converge, and Radiant Flames deals X damage to each creature, where X is the number of colors of mana spent to cast this spell. So if you use 3 red mana to cast it, you're only doing 1 point of damage. We discussed already before with Converge, usually you're going to be playing 2 colors during a pre-release or a draft or other sealed event. Two colors make sure you're very reliable. However, that means that this spell you can only be able to do 2 points of damage to each creature. It's pretty good. It does hit a lot of creatures in that case, the 2 points of damage, but it's not enough to push me into red. I would say tier 3.
Yeah, I would say so too. If you play 3 colors, it will become a lot more powerful. 3 damage to all creatures is pretty powerful, but 2 is just not really gonna cut it.
No.
Then we have Zada Hedron Grinder. For 4 mana, it's a 3/3 ally. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell that targets only Zada Hedron Grinder, so only, not even the spell that targets 2, it's the white one, I don't know the name, you can copy that spell, and for each other creature you control, the copy will go to that creature too, so it will affect all your creatures. Now this effect could be pretty powerful if you have a lot of combat tricks which target your own creatures, but the problem is we only saw like 7 or 8 in the whole set that have benefits for your only creature, so yeah, that's really not a lot. But it's still, for 4 mana, it's a 3/3 body, and could be a nice ability, of course, if you get the one that gives all your creatures, well, if you put it on this one, all your creatures +3/+0 and first strike, instant speed, that would of course be insane.
Yeah.
So if you have some of those, then this will become more powerful.
But that's still a pretty big utopia, and by itself it needs to be able to do a lot of stuff to go for higher tiers, I would say, just by itself, and the fact that there's so many little chances of having those kind of cards, it would go into tier 3. It's a pretty decent filler card, but not higher than that.
Yeah, it will be tier 3. If there will be more instants, it would have been tier 2.
Yeah. Then we have Barrage Tyrant. For 5 mana we get a 5/3 with Devoid, and for 3 mana we get to sacrifice another colorless creature, and then we deal damage equal to that sacrificed creature's power to target creature or player. I would say this is instantly tier 2. If I have more cards like this, it definitely pushes me into red. Why? Because for 5 mana we get a 5/3, which is a very relevant body, and for only 3 mana we can throw the biggest thing we have, or every turn something small, at a creature or a player, which gives great versatility.
Yeah, but of course only when you sacrifice colorless other creatures, so that's pretty limited. It limits you mostly to the Scions. Other creatures you don't want to sacrifice usually, unless they die during combat, of course, then you can also sacrifice them. But it's tier 2. 5/3 body is nice.
Yeah, as what Ruud just said, what you can do in this scenario, you can attack with a colorless creature, and then if they block it, then you just say, okay, then I'll sacrifice that creature and still deal damage to the other creature, or deal damage to the opponent's face, and that gives you great versatility in combat, because people don't know, okay, am I going to block it, I'm going to get the damage anyway, how am I going to do this? yeah, it gives you some versatility, which I think, yeah, which is pretty nice. Well, let's have a look at the next one, which is Akum Hellkite for 6 mana. We get a 4/4 flying dragon. Very cool. I think this is the only dragon in the set.
It's true.
It has landfall. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, this guy deals 1 point of damage to a creature or player. And if that creature is a mountain, you actually do 2 points of damage instead. If you're heavy in red, this is actually super powerful. Not to mention that, as we discussed already before, 4/4 flyers are extremely rare in this set. You're going to have the biggest thing in the air, pushes it into tier 1.
For me too, tier 1. It's not the best tier 1 card, but it's a good card. Really good.
Yeah.
Then we have the next card, Serpentine Spike. For 7 mana, it's the void card. The sorcery deals 2 damage to target creature, 3 damage to another target creature, and 4 damage to a third target creature. And if those creatures would die, then that turn you would exile them. Now, this is pretty powerful. For 7 mana is a lot, 7 mana, but you do need 3 targets. You do need 3 different targets, so you can choose to divide it in another way. So this makes it a little less usable. For 7 mana it's a little too much for me, a little too steep a cost. Also sorcery speed, so that puts it into tier 3. Well, still it's removal, but it will still be in tier 3.
Yeah, I would even say put this card aside. I think the fact that you're paying 7 mana, you want to at least be able to hit the big Eldrazi. You can't with this. It's so situational, not only the fact that it's sorcery, but also the fact that you need to have 3 targets, and they're going to be small targets, which you can probably stop yourself with your creatures at the point when you have 7 mana. I wouldn't even try and make it work. That's my opinion. Those are the rares. Let's have a look at the mythics. Our first mythic is Dragon Master Outcast. This is a reprint, and for 1 red mana we get a 1/1 Human Shaman, and it states that at the beginning of your upkeep, if you control 6 or more lands, you get to put down a 5/5 red dragon creature token onto the battlefield with flying. This card is tier 1. It is amazingly powerful. I would always first pick this. No questions asked.
Yeah, me too. It's actually on turn 6, it's for 1 mana, it's a huge bomb. 5/5 flyer, there's nothing in the whole set that is this powerful on the flyers. The most powerful flyers, 4 or 5, there are only 2 of those, so it's really, really powerful.
Yeah, nothing.
Tier 1.
Yeah, also make sure that you don't cast this on turn 1, because it will never survive the 6 turns that it'll take for it to start doing its work, so always wait till the last moment to cast it. To make sure that you actually get a benefit out of it. The next card we have is Akum Firebird for 4 mana. We have a 3/3 Phoenix with flying and haste. It also attacks each turn if able, and it has landfall, which states that whenever land enters the battlefield under your control, you can pay 6 mana and then return it from the graveyard to the battlefield.
Yeah, because it's a flyer, it's really strong in the set. I would say tier 1. In other sets it will maybe be tier 2, but in this set it will be tier 1.
Yeah, because of the lack of flyers, because of how small the flyers are, and the fact that it also has a built-in mana sink later on in the game. When it does die, you can just use those 6 mana if you flood it out, and then you still have a 3/3 flyer you can attack with because it has haste. Well, pretty good. Those are the mythics. Let's have a look at the conclusion.
In conclusion, red is pretty decent. It does have some removal. It does not have removal for the bigger threats on the battlefield, only dealing damage, which will be maximum 5 normally. So the bigger threats it won't be able to remove. It does have some pretty nice aggro cards with the menace ability, of course, but I don't know if it will have enough fuel to push your deck to the end of the game.
Yeah, I agree. I'm not too sure about red as a main color. If I'm going to be playing 2 colors, which I usually do and I recommend as well, red would not be the first main color that I would go for. I think red has a lot of very nice cards that fill out maybe some inconsistencies in other colors, but by itself, as Ruud already said, the removal isn't great, the toughness isn't great, it doesn't have a lot of flyers, it doesn't have a lot of the other things that make red so powerful, which is super cheap, smaller guys, because after all, those Eldrazi Scions, they're not in red. So you're gonna have to look elsewhere for to have lots of small little guys to attack with aggressively. In that sense, I would say good, solid color for support to fill out the roles that you can't fill out with your main color, but I probably won't go go main red, I think.
I think the removal is actually pretty powerful, just not in this set, because everybody will be playing those 7/7/8/8 Eldrazi creatures, which you just can't kill with your removal in red.
No, exactly. Do you have anything else to add about that?
I think that's it.
I think that's it. So, decent for filler stuff. Don't try and force it as your main color. I think that's it. Alright, well, don't forget to subscribe because it allows us to make more videos, lets us know we're doing a good job. Also, join us on Twitter and on Facebook where we can continue this discussion. I mean, are we wrong about red? Is maybe red a very powerful main color? Could be. Let us know what you think about that. Also, you can talk to us in the comments below this video. Let us know what your experience is during your pre-release and drafting the set later on. That's it. Thanks for watching. I'm David.
And I'm Ruud.
And this was Budget MTG Decks.